All right, so welcome everyone to another exciting episode of our Break into Tech series. It's actually the International Women's Day series, so special episode. So today we have an inspiring and insightful conversation lined up for you, one that will change the way that you think about your career transition into tech. Now, I know that breaking into tech can feel overwhelming, especially if you don't have a traditional tech background. But today we have Olamide with us, someone who has worked this very path and successfully transitioned into a high-paying role as a business analyst and product owner. She's here to share her journey, the struggles, the breakthroughs, the lessons that helped her to make the leap. So if you've ever felt stuck, or you've doubted your ability to switch careers, or wondered if it's too late, this session is for you. Over the next hour, you'll gain real world insights, practical advice, and the motivation that you need to take action. So let's dive in. Olamide, welcome to the session. Before we get into your journey, because I'm excited about this. It's been a while. I've seen you on camera. Maybe probably I see you when you do your business stuff. And I'm happy. I'm happy because you are able to do a whole lot. In fact, let me refer to you as an Amazon, when it comes to uh, doing all that you do as a woman. But anyways, we'll get into all
Thank
of
you.
that. Before we get into your journey, let's start with this. Why should someone stay tuned for the next 60 minutes? And what do you think is in store for them? What's in it for them? Why should they stay here for the next 60 minutes to listen to you?
Okay, so here is it. Here's why you should stay here for the next 60 minutes. Um, Sometimes the journey of like career transitioning can be scary. You might think, oh, is this for me? Can I do this? Is this worthwhile? Is this so you should stay on to know, to be able to get a solid answer to those questions. And in this discussion, honestly, because I was Michael student, I'm also a transitioner, like everyone present here. So there'll be no fluff. There'll be nothing, there'll be no sugarcoating it. You understand? It's not too long ago that I transitioned to business analysis myself. So I think you are better off hearing from someone like me. You understand? Sharing my experiences, sharing real world experiences, and then that can help you to really be able to make a decision. Because I tell you, the decision to break into tech or not, or it's a life-changing decision, honestly. I grew from a salary of 43,000 to six figure. I don't have to mention. And I can tell you for sure that it's life-changing. I know what I achieved in the space of 2 years, you understand, with that change. So, I mean, just financial freedom is worth the while. That you are going to grow personally, you are going to learn, you are going to, and not just in your pockets, but in knowledge too. And whatever helps you to grow in knowledge, I think is worth paying 100% attention to. So that to me, that's one of the reasons, why you should stay glued to this session for the next 1 hour. Then there's definitely some questions that you have. Is this worth it? Is this overrated? Is this for me? Do my experiences align? Do I, all of those misconceptions that you may have, you'll be able to clear in this session because, of course, we'll be open to taking questions from you and
All right.
answering them. Yeah.
Thank you so much. In fact, I feel like just asking a few questions from what you said, which I'm going to get into very soon. But just to let the people on the call know, you will have the opportunity to ask questions towards the end of our conversation. So please stick around, and you will be given the opportunity to ask questions. You talked about financial freedom. You talked about the ability, you growing in so many ways, and this transition helping you to open some extra doors. Now, I'm privy to some of the things you've accomplished in in a few, let's say in a few months or in a few years. Now, do you mind just helping expatiate on what you mean by and probably giving your own personal example, because I know you've gone on from just being someone who is in tech to getting into business. Now, do you think there's any connection? Because you talked about financial freedom, being able to do other things because of this transition. Can you explain
Yes.
further using your own personal experience?
Okay. So here is it. Um, just like when I was discussing with my husband recently, I started on the side. I have a baking business, right? And one thing I found is that my experience as a business analyst just generally now helps me to think better,
Mm,
helps me to be able to have like a think across board. I'm more broad ranged in my thinking now, not so narrow, more than I was before. You understand? So that's one of those things that I think that being a business analyst has added to me. And just like recently, I'm kind of growing my pastry business by the side. And I'll share an example. So we were looking to, and it's something I'm doing together with my husband. So we're thinking of acquiring a machine from China to just help scale our production. But the kinds of questions that I'm asking the manufacturer when I'm saying, so how is this going to work? What is this going to do? How many units is this going to? So if I increase the size, am I going to be able to get this number of units? Even my husband is nodding like smart question. You understand? Like, okay, so if I increase the mode, how many am I going to get instead? Then, and all those kind of things, because I'm not just thinking in terms of the basic information that provided to me, like, oh, so this can do this. So I'm thinking, what if I change my formula? If I change my recipe, would this still work? If I add this, if my dough becomes like this instead of this, would this still work? Can we test it to make sure? Can we? So I think that I've learned, as working as a business analyst for the past couple of years, I have learned to not see things at surface value. You
mm.
understand? I've learned to think more deeply, to ask more questions, to probe, to seek clarity. You understand? So that generally has helped me in my personal life, in my personal business, going beyond, you understand? And of course, when my kid is talking about financial freedom, yes, I have extra money to spend on my business. I have extra money to do research on my business, to fund my business on one side, because I'm earning enough to like not just pay my bills, but have some little savings. So yeah.
That's absolutely right, because it happened to me too. Moving into tech actually afforded me the opportunity to have, extra income that I could dispense, that I could use, that I am willing to take a risk on. And this is one of the things that we tell people. What most people fail to understand is that when they come into a country like this as an immigrant, um, one of the first set of things that they get into is, for most people, is the survival jobs. And they could take on one, two, three of these survival jobs. There's a couple, no, there's nothing wrong with survival jobs, but it's not meant to be stayed on for too long, right? Because if you stay on it for too long, number one, it could deprive you of the time you need for something else. Some hardly have time for their kids, for their family. I know of a guy who came into our training, but thank God he now has this freedom. He was doing three jobs at the same time. Three jobs at the same time. He didn't have the time for himself. He didn't have the time for himself at all. And sometimes that could limit the way you think. So for some people, it has affected their psyche and the way they think about themselves. They no longer believe in their abilities. They no longer believe in themselves. They are unwilling to take the risk. Where is the risk you want to take when you're even living from paycheck to paycheck? The little $100 you would have used to invest in a business or start something, you're like, this money has to go into something else. So that kind of freedom is no longer there. So thank you for bringing that insight, and that leads me to the next question. Do you think that tech is overrated? Because some persons here will be like, what is it, Seth? Is it tech, 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 tech? Okay, so let me ask you this question. As someone who has been on this other side of the fence and now you are a tech insider, do you think that tech is overrated? Why or why not?
Absolutely no. Tech is not overrated because technology is always evolving. Technology is one field that is always growing. There will always be need for technology. Technology is not going to, the landscape might change, but technology is never going to fade out. So
Mm.
if just for that reason, there will always be need to improve for improvement in technology. There will always be need. There will always be a government policy that will warrant improvement in technology. There will always be a business need that will warrant improvement in technology. There will just always be something, you understand, that would, and there will always be problems that technology can solve. So technology for me is somewhere where there is limitless opportunities. I don't think it's overrated. One moment we're talking about some kind of technology, then the next moment, for example, right now, oh, AI, artificial intelligence is the buzz. The next moment, by next year, it's probably something else. So technology is constantly evolving, the landscape is changing, there's always new things to do. There's always, so I don't think it's overrated. And because of that, there will always be opportunities in technology. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that. I love that. Okay, so now let's now begin to get narrow this down, this conversation to you in particular. Now, before transitioning into tech, what was your background like? Because somebody may be here thinking, okay, we've had a couple of guests here. We had someone from a sales and marketing background, we had someone from a warehouse background, and I've seen a lot of people I came from an education background, engineering slash education, engineering as my education, but lecturing as my profession, right? And I moved from being a lecturer to being, coming into tech. Some people may be wondering, okay, what was her background like that enabled her to move? So can you tell us what was your background? What industry were you in, and what kind of work did you do before you transitioned into tech?
Okay. So my background, if you're talking about like what I studied in school to start with, in university, I studied philosophy. So I was like in the arts, in the humanities. I was not even in the sciences. So I studied philosophy in my first degree. Master's degree, I studied peace studies and conflict resolution.
Ah.
So I'm not even a tech person to start with. And I was working I started my career in procurement. I was like a procurement officer then I moved to sales in a very popular brewing company in Nigeria. So I was in sales and then I was in sales operations.
Mm.
And I was in sales operations until I immigrated to Canada. So my career was not, I didn't have any like computer science or engineering or coding background, or I didn't have any technical background either. So I was a salesperson. I moved into sales operations, you understand. And then right now
So this
I'm
leads me
working.
to the next question I want to ask. A good segue. So did you have any misconceptions, seeing that you had this background, did you have any misconceptions about tech before making the move? For example, there are some people that will feel like, oh, I think I need to be able to code before I, make this move. I need to have some kind of certification. I require some kind of, what was the particular misconception? Did you have any such misconception?
Yes, yes. I naturally had those misconceptions because when I'm thinking about what a business analyst role was, like even I had a friend then who tried to convince me, like even as a new immigrant, to, venture into business analysis. And I said, no, no, that definitely wasn't for me. Because when I thought about it, I'm like, okay, you're working with developers, you're working with engineers, you're working with so if I'm supposed to be the link, I'm supposed to be able to tell them what to do. How will I know what they're supposed to do, kind of thing? How will I was under those impressions and I really was not. Matter of fact, what I was thinking to do, what I thought, okay, even if I had to have a career change, what was in line with what I think I knew how to do was, okay, if I want to go into marketing, maybe digital marketing will be fine for me. I'm a salesperson. I understand a little bit of marketing. Maybe I can go in. That's what I was thinking about, right? So I didn't think tech was going to be great for me because I have zero technical background, you understand? And then especially when you are sometimes when you're around people who if you have friends who are like maybe developers or and then you hear them throw some jargons, you would think, oh, I'll never understand this when I get on the job. You understand? So I definitely add my, and I would say maybe it would be nice to chip this in that the only reason I gave Business Analysis a shot was because when I saw the ad for Michael's class, the first couple of classes were free. So I'm like, okay, what's to lose? Let me join. And by the third or fourth class, if I find out that this is, then I'll just back out. No, I haven't lost anything, right? So I joined. I'm like, okay, low risk. This is as low risk as it gets. Yeah.
Uh,
So
all right.
mhm.
So you were like, let me just go in and see what they even have to say. Let me see if this is even for me. And okay, so you went through that phase. Now, looking back, what would you say was the hardest part of transitioning into tech for you, and how did you overcome that? What was the hardest part of transitioning into tech?
Okay, so I would say the hardest part for me was how I was going to, how I was going to relate my current experience into whatever role I want to apply for.
Mm,
Because when I'm looking at business analysis job openings, most of them require work experience, right? And I'll be like, okay, so I don't have this work experience. So that was the toughest part for me. How do I relate what I have done in the past to business analysis? How have I been a business analyst in the past? You understand? Because it has to make sense for me to be able to write it on my CV. You understand? To overcome that imposter feeling that I'm having, to be able to face an interview panel. That I would say was I couldn't wrap my head around it a lot at the beginning was the hardest part for me until I joined, until I was able to, do this, analysis. This is self-analysis right now, you understand? And then until I was able to draw those connections and then see what business analysis is actually all about and how my past experiences actually align with business analysis and how everything comes together. You understand? So I see facilitation in my previous roles. I see handling data in my previous roles. I see solutioning in my previous roles. And then everything begins to come together. And I'm like, okay, these are the things I can talk through. These are the things that are relevant. And these are the things I can, definitely I also had identified areas for improvement. Yeah, these are the things I need to improve on. Maybe learn this thing, one or two things, and then build my portfolio and then have that confidence to say, yes, I have similar experiences. So that I would say was my biggest challenge in the beginning.
okay. Yeah, so you've said a couple things here. I know you're both a business analyst and product owner. Somebody may be listening to us and probably doesn't know, can't easily relate to how it's possible to take your previous experience from sales or your previous experience from philosophy or whatever it is that you did and relate that to business analysis. Maybe
Mhm.
part of that could be that they fully do not understand, they right now do not understand what exactly what it entails to be a BA. You are a BA, business analyst, and a product owner.
Mhm.
How would you explain what you do to someone with zero tech experience, a layman who just wants to understand what do you do as a BA? What do you do as a business analyst? What do you do as a product owner? At least you have been working in this role for a couple years now. Help us understand. Someone who has no experience at all. What do you do as a
Yeah.
or a PO?
Okay. So the simplest way to explain it is to say that as a business analyst or as a product owner, I bridge the gap between business and technology.
Hmm.
So here is it. I want to know what the business needs to build and to be a more uh, effective or efficient business analyst. I not only question what the business wants to build, I want to know why we want to build what we want to build. You
Hmm.
understand? So in knowing why we want to build what we want to build, then I have an in-depth understanding of not just because sometimes people who are engineers can think about things differently from how the business is thinking about it. You understand? They're just looking to build this thing, but the I'm a custodian of the business requirements. I'm a custodian of what the business processes. You understand? Why are they even doing this? What's the end goal? You understand? So then I'm able to communicate that better to, engineers. And I'm not alone in my communication. So just so you know, I'm not telling the engineers, this is what you need to do. There's so many links in between. So there is on your team as a business analyst, you will never work alone. You are not just facing engineers and saying, oh, this is what you need to do. There is the UX researchers, there's the UX designers, there is the quality assurance people. You understand? Here is what we need to build. My UX researchers or designers, they have already prototyped it. So you are not doing this communication vaguely. There's references, you understand, for you to say, hey, this is it. So we want this to be able to take a record of everybody entering this facility. Okay, so now what information do we want from them? Okay, we want their names, we want their phone numbers, we want them to be able to say what units they're going to or why they're here. So what fields do we need to see in that entry form? We need to see only 4 fields: the name, the phone number, the purpose of their visits, and what units they are going to. You understand? So anything beyond that will be unnecessary padding. You understand? But if you tell an engineer, oh, we want people who come in here to be able to register. In fact, they may ask for their mother's maiden name, but we do not need their mother's maiden name. You understand? They may ask for, they may, put a camera in the software to take their pictures. No, we do not need to see their pictures. You understand? So this requirement, you have it. You are not even going into meetings with the clients alone, for example. You understand? When you are going into meetings with the clients, in as much as you're talking about the functional requirements, your your colleagues are talking about the design angle. I mean, the UX people, user experience. If I'm using words that are not familiar, they're talking about the user experience angle. Your engineers might even have questions. You understand, to support whatever questions you're answering. So you are not necessarily working alone. A development team is a cross-functional team. You understand? You have supports, but you are just that person who bridges the gap between, you are that link, you understand? Because eventually, even when you are way into the development of the software, you are the custodian of the requirements. You understand? So even if the client comes back to say, oh, why are you not asking for their mother's maiden name? Why is there no field for their mother's maiden name? Then you can say, oh, you are the gatekeeper. You can say, oh, this was not a requirement. Then it's your duty, you understand, to talk to the client to know whether, oh, is this a must-have requirement? If we don't have, is this a deal breaker? If we don't have this right now, will the software still work as expected? Can we do this in the future? You understand? Or do we have to do this now? And you might not be working with clients. It might be internal clients. Your stakeholders might be internal to you. You understand? I keep saying clients, sorry, because my experience is in agency. I work with external clients, so I keep saying clients. But your clients might not be external clients. They might be internal clients. You understand? Prioritization is your job. Oh, we don't, and yeah, we don't have to do this. For example, we don't have to add mother's maiden name. While we are adding mother's maiden name, there is no, you only need maybe some data to justify why you're making some particular decisions, you understand? Things like that. And then, but essentially it's a fun environment to work because you're not working alone. It's not on you to say, oh, this is what we have to do. You understand? You're working that's why a business analyst, a successful person, has to be collaborative. Sometimes you can, pick your colleagues' brains and say, what do you think? You are a facilitator. You understand? You're a
That,
facilitator. You're a facilitator, you are a documentator, you are a gatekeeper, you understand. So yeah,
that
essentially
that
that's
that's a lot because I pick up a couple of things which you mentioned there. facilitation, collaboration, documentation, prioritization, and just to bring it together for those of you who probably don't know what business analysis is about, basically, like she said, in summary, she's kind of the middleman between the business. Okay. Now, the business could be wanting to do anything or make any changes ranging from their products, if they do products or services, their processes, their technology, their policies, it could be anything, right? So she's a custodian of whatever needs to change. She enables that change, making sure that the people who will implement it have the right set of requirements, the right set of things that they need to implement. Now, and in the process of doing that, she's going to relate with different other people because she doesn't work alone. She's going to work with different other people who will be implementing this. Now, while you were talking, something came to mind because you said you particularly work in agency, which means consulting.
Yeah.
It means that you probably have found yourself in a scenario where you were thrown into a project that you probably never had any prior knowledge of that industry, or you had no idea. Because somebody may be here thinking, I need to know everything 360 before I can be a BA. I need to know everything 100% before I be a BA. But has there been a situation where you were thrown into a project with zero idea? Like you didn't know what the heck this thing was? Or what exactly, you've never interacted with this before. How did you go about that? I'm asking this question because it will help somebody here who's probably going through the process of becoming a BA to relax and know that, hey, when they throw you into a project, these are the things that happen. There is some kind of there's that duration of time that you're given to learn or to come up to speed. So I want to know, has there been any situation like that where you've been thrown into something that you had no idea what it was? And how were you able to, navigate your way through that project?
Interesting question, because if you ask if I've been thrown into a project where I have like no idea of like what tech stack we're working with, what the type of technology, what we're supposed to be doing, that's like 99.9% of the time.
Hmm.
You understand? Yeah, that's 99.9% of the time. So here is it. I don't even think you are expected to know.
Hmm.
You understand these things.
Please, let's take that again. That's a punchline that people need to understand. I'm very
Yes,
particular about these things. You said you are you don't think that they are even expected to know before
yes,
even getting on the project. Wow.
yes, yes. But what you should do as soon as you get on the project is to prioritize gaining the knowledge that is important for you to be able to do what you need to do on the project. You
Hmm.
understand? Okay, so here is it. On my first project was an e-commerce project. I mean, if you are coming from like even if you have worked in a tech company, but not as a business analyst, you're probably used to, getting on board, getting training, being brought up to speed with, okay, this is how this software works. You click here, it gives you this, you do this, it gives you this. But that might not always be the case. You understand? That might not always be the case. It doesn't work that way in every organization, especially in consulting. It might not work that way. You understand? But you join a project. For example, my first project was an e-commerce project. You understand? So I took my time to research e-commerce when I joined the project. Took my time, looked at e-commerce, found things online to say, okay, this is how things are supposed to work. You understand? This is, of course, all of you have done some kind of, everybody has e-commerce experience. Please, if you don't have any e-commerce experience, I want you to raise up your hands if you don't have any e-commerce experience. Like Signal, raise up your hands.
You never
Then
bought
I'll put
anything
it
on
there.
Amazon.
Yes, yes. So because now everything that we're talking about functionally was relatable to me. Nothing was not relatable. You understand? We're talking about customers login, registration, loyalty, subscription. Even on Amazon, they offer you subscription. Subscribe to this one, save 13% when you subscribe. You understand? You know, so nothing, so when it comes to functional requirements, nothing was not relatable. You understand? That's just basic. But when it comes to technical, you understand? On a project, everybody has their artifacts, or so to say. Your Your job as a business analyst might be to document functional requirements. You have technical counterparts who are going to come up with lots of technical design drawings, lots of technical specification drawings. You understand? Diagrams, sorry, to analyze maybe how data will flow from one place to one place, from one system to another. So I'm trying to sound very layman, but not too. I'm trying to simplify this. I don't know everybody's tech. You understand? Yeah.
So
So
basically, just to make it very easy for them, so basically just help them understand, is there that time period where you are given to kind of get up to speed, and what did you do? What were the things that you did to get up to speed? Is it like continuous learning throughout the whole process until the project finishes or stuff, so that someone has an understanding of, because the way I see most people, they think they need to have 100% idea of every single thing.
no, no, you don't have to have 100% idea. So when I was talking about your technical counterparts having their own like technical designs and all that, is the fact that as you're documenting functional requirements while they are also working on their own artifacts, you will go to your technical counterparts and be like, can you explain this diagram to me? You understand? And they'll break it down to you. It's going to be a period of continuous learning. Matter of fact, even if you are working on a project, you are doing an implementation, you are not going to implement everything under 1 week. Maybe the simplest, even like e-commerce migration project, might even take 1 year or 1.5 years or 2 years. You understand? So you have time to ease into it. You finish one phase, you move on to the next phase. You finish one phase, you move on because software development is iterative, is continuous. And nobody expects you also to plan everything from the beginning to the end. No. So your technical counterparts explain what they have to you. They explain to you how this is supposed to work. Now you have told them what should be. They'll tell you how it should be. You understand? The what is for you, the how is for, some of your team members, the UX that will design the frameworks and all that, and then the technical people too. So it's like I always say, you don't have to know everything, but your biggest allies will be your questioning, asking smart questions. You understand? Getting the right answers. You have to stay curious because especially in consulting, you work in retail right now, then your very next project. Okay, let me share my own experience with you. My first project was e-commerce. My very second project was POS software,
Hmm.
which is totally different from e-commerce. Totally different. But as soon as we get into the discovery sessions with the clients, and I begin to ask questions, how should this work? Then they'll tell me, okay, so when you log in, what does a day in the life of a retail associate look like when they log into your POS in the morning? What do? They take payments, they do refunds, they validate transactions, they do cancellations, all these things. This business, for example, they had an online store, they had an offline, they had a retail outlet. Now, some of their customers purchase online, but one problem they were looking to solve was that customers who purchase online should be able to return in store. You understand? And that's really what we were building for. They wanted to integrate that online and offline experience. Let it not be totally isolated because some people buy online, they just walk into the store, they want to return it. The associates don't have any record for that online purchase, and that's what we're looking to solve. So I'm looking to know, how does your software even work to start with? You understand? So that we can know where we can, or how we can solve this problem. Um, Like even as simple as requesting access. Can I have access to the current, can you create an account for me on this current software? Then I will now sit down. I will look into it, click in, click out, destroy everything because it's a sandbox account they've created for me. So look at how everything works, break it down, document the process, and then I can see where we can improve, how this can happen, where this, so those are the things. So it's no situation where as far as you stay curious, as far as you're asking smart questions, as far as you don't allow imposter syndrome
It's you.
to to eat you up, you understand? Because they don't expect you to know. My client does not expect me to have ever done a POS. They don't expect me to be a POS expert. They don't expect
Absolutely.
me to understand how their process works. They are going to tell me how their process
They
works.
expect you to
I'm
come
going
to
to
them
ask,
and ask them and say,
yes,
please, how does this thing work? Right? And then they will even be the
yes,
ones even telling you what they want. You get
yes,
that? So it's more like you're going there to I mean, in business analysis, we call it elicitation. You are gathering the information, you're collecting the information from them, and they're just feeding, it's like they're spoon feeding you, but you need to just ask the right questions, right? To
yes.
get you there. Love.
And your biggest strength would be to be a good listener. Because when you are listening well, listening for what they said and what they did not say, listening for, you just have to listen well. You understand? Listen for, intentions, listen for those small nuances that can easily, get missed. You understand?
Wow.
So, yeah.
So in all that you've said so far, since the beginning of this, I'm beginning to take into account some of the skills that you have mentioned. You mentioned research, meaning that, for someone who is looking out there to be a BA, you need to be ready to be able to go out and look for information. Okay, look for information that is related to what you are doing. You will not sit down and wait for information to come to you. You have to go out, do your research. You have to collaborate with people. I wrote collaboration there. You will need to know how to prioritize. Which one should we do first? Which one are these people really, more into? What do they really want now? You will need to know how to facilitate, how to get people into a room, how to ask them questions. You will need to be a learner, somebody who is a lifelong learner. You're willing to learn. You will need to be somebody who is curious, always asking the right questions. You will need to be someone who is a communicator. And by communication, the first step in communication, like you said, is listening. You have to be a good listener and you need to learn how to investigate things for yourself. Thank you for that. Now, let's now talk about your transition journey. Let's get back to your transition journey. How long did it take for you? You decided you wanted to transition to tech. How long did it take from that point where you made that decision to transition and when you finally landed your first tech role? What was the duration of that for you?
Okay. So before I answer that question, let me first manage your expectations. That I would say that I was, you know, very lucky when it came to like from the moment I decided to transition to when I got a job. I was pretty lucky. So I started my transition, but I think I don't want to just hinge everything on luck. I think I also want to say we have to have our grit and grind.
Mm,
You understand? Nothing good comes easy. I'm going to just add that. So I think it was a March class that I joined for my transitioning. I studied through March or April, either March or April cohorts that I joined. But I got my first role exactly 2 months after. In fact, I think I got my first role the week that our training ended.
mm,
So the truth is I I was in class. I participated in classes. If I ever missed any class, I would catch up on the recording. I was asking questions. I was in the groups, I was doing the things that we were supposed to do. You understand? But I was also doing a lot of studying. I was not waiting, honestly, for things to fall in my laps. When I was talking about that, doing a kind of self-analysis and seeing how my current role fits into my, aspirations. It was something that I had to sit down to do, you understand, and really think through it. It takes a while, to be able to think through these things. In fact, I remember the first time we were supposed to have like a CV clinic kind of thing. Before then, I already reached out to Michael and said, please, I need a sample resume. I want to try to work on my resume. He asked me to wait. I said, no, I don't want to wait. Can I have it, please? You understand? So I would not say, I would not totally say that I did not also put in a lot of effort and hard work, honestly. I was staying up late, come back from work. I was driving to the library straight from work to attend my class because coming home will be so much distraction. I won't be able to listen very well. You understand? I worked on my resume. I sent it to Michael to review for me and all that. So, I got feedback. I improved on it and I started to apply. I told myself, I like, the idea of failing and failing fast. I like the motivation in the beginning. The beginning motivation is very good. You understand? So I didn't sleep on it because if you're not taking action like right from the beginning, doing things quickly, then one might get into that, lagging spirit after a while. So I like to just, make hay while the sun shines, if I'm allowed to say that. So it was a pretty short transition period for me, I would say. It was just about 2 months between like when I, uh, took the classes till when I started. I remember even learning tools like Jira. Aside from what we were taught in class, I would, like go to YouTube again, learn it, just make sure that I was familiar with those tools, you understand? And even though you'll be provided this information in class, you'll be taught, if you don't practice, what would your confidence be like when you are like facing an interview? Can you use this tool? Yes, I can, because I have practiced. I may not be a pro, I don't have to be a pro, but the basics that I need to do, I've been taught and I have practiced. And so, yes, I can use the tool. You
Mm.
understand? So,
This
because nobody,
this thing you just said now, just made me think about one question I wanted to ask you, which will be one of the questions I would ask before I open the floor for people to ask questions, and then I'll come back and then we can round up a few things. There's this debate about, not necessarily a debate, there's this thing about certifications versus hands-on experience. For you, was certification part of what helped you? Because I know you talked about practicing. That has a lot to do with hands-on experience. So what do you advise for somebody who's trying to transition? What should they take seriously? Certifications, hands-on experience, what's the order of things, and what would you generally advise?
okay, if you would ask for my advice, I would say that hands-on experience, I value hands-on experience over certification. Some things in certification, they are good to know some things you will learn while taking certification are good to know. But sometimes they are theoretical, but hands-on experience is practical. So I'd rather be like in a UX design meeting because I remember then there used to be UX design meetings, there used to be project sessions
Yeah, we
that
still
would be
have
there.
we still have the project sessions and the design meetings every Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'd rather be in a project session like that is almost a simulation of what I would face in real life. You understand? And I'm totally not saying that certifications are not good. If you have time on your hands to do both, by all means do both. Because you will see some jobs, especially government jobs, that will say certification is an asset. You understand? If you have time to do both, by all means do both. But in the beginning, when you are just trying to transition, certification is not necessarily priority. You understand? Hands-on experience, I would say, is more important than priority. Sitting on an actual project and documenting requirements, put pen on paper and say, yes, this is what I documented. Can somebody review this? You understand? I think is more important. Really asking the questions, talking to a developer. asking real questions, you understand, I would say is more important than certification. But if you have time to do both, by all means do both. But I don't think that certification has ever stood in my way. You understand? Now, there are a couple certifications that I have gotten along the line. You understand? For example, I did my Scrum certification. You understand? But matter of fact, I did it after I already got a job. You understand? I've taken other trainings that will come with certification. Some of them I have not finished. Like very recently, I was uh taking Salesforce trainings. It will come with a certification. You understand? At the end of the day, but that is me just wanting to acquire more knowledge and just be more diverse, you understand? So that I'm able to maybe apply for more roles if I want to, you understand? Yes, not necessarily, but I didn't have any certification that directly or indirectly, helped me to secure a job if we want to nail it down to that.
That makes a lot of sense. So for those of you who are on the platform, you've not been coming to project sessions. Don't wait for me to be reminding you. Tuesday, 7 p.m. If you're in the UK, 8 p.m. on Fridays. Join the project sessions. You will see practical projects. You see what we are doing. You see what people are doing. You see what the UX designer is doing. Join the stand-ups. You will see what the developers are doing. These things are there for you just to gain this hands-on experience. I'm not saying the certifications are not good, but just like Olamide said, they are more likely to be, you know, gotten when you get the job. Okay, 7 p.m. EST, please. All right. If you're on the platform, you have unlimited access to always join these sessions. Even if you don't at first join a project, at least listen to the people that are doing the project. Join the sessions, listen, see. We spoke with Sneha the other day, right? Some of you heard from Sneha. She told you that the things she said on the interview were things that she saw on the stand up. The developers were saying them on the stand up, and she asked questions and she understood what a webhook was. So she went into this interview and started talking about webhook, some technical terms. Do you understand? The same things she picked up on the stand up. And the people were like, okay, can you explain to us what the webhook is and all of that? And she explained it because it's not something she crammed. It's something that she, had first-hand experience with. So if you are on the platform, please, we put these things together for you. Make sure you attend these sessions and you will not regret it. Now, let me open the floor. We'll come back again and I'll still ask some questions, but I want to open the floor just in case someone is itching to ask a question. Please raise your hand and then we can unmute you, or you can put something in the chat. I'll be looking out in the chat for questions and we can go from there. Is that okay? So anybody with questions, you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand and we can, take you to ask your questions before we, so anybody like that? All right, Olasumbo, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Michael, for this opportunity. So I just want to ask our presenter here. I want to ask her how on the average, I know she got a job early, but I just want to be able to relate on the average, how many jobs did she apply for um before she got that, and how many interviews did she go in for, and also how was she able to scale through the interview? How did she prepare for the interview, and all of that? So those are my questions.
Okay.
Okay, great. Good question, Olasunbo. So here is it. I said earlier, when Michael asked about my transition, I said it was a combination of hard work and I would say some elements of luck too. Or you understand both. But tell you what, if I think back now and how many applications I had sent out at that time, I don't think it'll be more than 7 or 8 jobs that I applied to. And how many interviews? It was my first interview, and I landed the job on my first interview. No sugarcoating it. It was my first interview. So, but like I said before, there was some people will not be that lucky. I have a friend who had several interviews, maybe like up to 15 before they finally got a role. They are successful in their own rights. That's why don't be discouraged if you do want to, you're not getting feedback and you'll be like, how did somebody say they got on the first right? Because let me tell you what, me that I got a job on my first interview, yeah, there have also been roles that I have seen and I've applied to now with more experience and that I didn't get. You understand? I remember sometimes last year, about December, there was one role I saw that really piques my interest. I'm like, oh, this will be fantastic. And I applied to that role and I didn't get it. So not to say that there's a guru somewhere that will land every role. No, you understand? So, but how did I prepare? I looked at the job description. What are they looking for? I knew I was going in for an e-commerce role. So I knew that the questions were going to be very e-commerce related and CMS related. They were big on e-commerce and content management. So what did I do? I sat down, like I said before, I researched e-commerce. I researched CMS. How does CMS work? I saw that they were talking about headless CMS. It was a new concept to me. I am very used to traditional CMS because I've worked on a website backend before, WordPress. You understand? I do website updates because I had my own, sometimes back, I had an e-commerce store that I built on Shopify. If anybody knows Shopify, Shopify is plug and play. It's like a regular app on your phone. They've built everything. Just go upload your product, write product description, push it out. It's published. You understand? So I knew you understand how to upload products on your website. That was all. That was all I was doing, uploading products on the website. But it had nothing to do with actually getting into how was this website built. Just like all the apps you use on your phone. You use apps on your phone every day. But do you know how they are built? Do you know what goes into it? No. You understand? So I researched e-commerce. What are the core themes in e-commerce? What should I be asking a client on an e-commerce project? On an e-commerce, what are the common themes? Okay, e-commerce, user management, customer tiering, customer segmentation. All of this I got from reading, preparing for this. Okay, these are the core things, customer data privacy. These are the things that come up on e-commerce things. These are what clients would need. These are these are the things to consider when building an e-commerce website. Data privacy, payments, shipping, loyalty schemes. Those are the things that e-commerce people think about. Those are so I wrote, had my notes, had everything documented. Now, I told you another core thing they were talking about. They were talking about headless CMS. I know CMS. WordPress is a CMS that you can easily, but what is headless? You understand? So I now did research again. Watch YouTube videos. What is headless CMS? What makes it headless? Where is the head? Which is headless? Why doesn't it have a head? You understand? So I, got as much information that made sense as possible. How does headless work? Okay, so what is the link? You understand? How does the back end work? How does the front end work? How does it connect? Then I started to understand because see, there's information, except you don't want to find it, except you don't want to.
So basically, there's a lot of
so that's how I prepared.
So it still boils down to personal research, right? You still have to.
Yes. Yes. So aside the personal research I did, then I had my interview session where now I got that prepping that I needed. I got some framework, that they teach in this class to be able to answer some kinds of questions like introduce yourself, where if you don't start to stammer from the beginning, your confidence is, if you answer your first 2 or 3 questions and they nod head, your confidence will go up small. You'll be like, yes, you understand. So, it's just preparedness. Yes.
For those of you who are looking for, if you're on the platform and you have access to the interview prep videos, for those of you who have access to the interview prep videos, you will see the interview prep with Olamide is one of the first interview prep videos that we have on the interview prep video for those of you on the platform. So go and check that interview. That was the only interview prep I had with her, and then she landed the job. right? And also we have the e-commerce stuff. How do you work on an e-commerce project? We also have that on the platform. We have a lot of resources. I would show you probably at the end of this call where you can find them, especially for those of you on the platform. I'm going to point it directly to you where you can find those things. Okay. So at the end of the day, you see that what she's saying, I completely agree with it. It's one thing to have someone prep you. It's another thing for you to prep yourself. And that was one of the questions I even wanted to ask you between, what would you say between self-study and having a mentor? To be honest, I think you just answered that question. Is both. Even when you have a mentor, you still have to do self-study. So there's nothing like, yes, for those who can do their own self-study, well, that's good. But there's also the role of mentorship, you see. But even mentorship is not the all in all. You still need to do your own work. So it's very important that people understand that coming into a boot camp or coming into a training is not a walk in the park. It's not an express ticket to anything. It's just a start of your journey, But the good thing about that is that you have the necessary, help that you would require when you eventually when you need it. All right, let's go into some other questions here. Somebody said, I wanted to ask, oh, there was one initial question that we had, and I think we answered it. What were the challenges you faced? Did we answer that question before? Yeah, I think you mentioned your challenges, the challenges you faced. Let's move on to the next one. I wanted to ask what your first day at work was like. That's so what somebody's asking. So what was your first day at work like?
Okay. I will describe my first week. I'll not describe my first day because my first day was, okay, log in, take these trainings. Welcome to this organization. These are the trainings you need to do. All the trainings were video trainings and they left me. Nobody was checking whether I did them or not. That was my first day. So, but if you mean my first couple of days, my first couple of weeks, you understand? Like I said, I worked in consulting. So consulting, most of the time, there's like a client project they want to place you on. You understand? So by the second week, like I was introduced to the clients, I was given a brief of what the project is about. We call it SOW that was signed with the clients, the statement of work that was signed with clients. So some of them might be very detailed. I've seen very detailed ones. I've seen not so detailed ones. It will let you know the scope of the project. Okay, why are we here? What are we building? What is this client about? What are we? Okay, great. So next, you meet your team. You understand? So this is beyond first day. I'm sure that question you did not really mean to ask first day. You understand? So I'm going to
Maybe
answer
she
it
just wants
beyond.
to know. She just wants to know how you were able to cope with, what was the
Yes.
reaction? How were you able to cope with
Yes.
day or first week,
Mhm.
or when the project started coming in? I think that's kind of
Yes.
the idea, right? How were you
Yes. Yes.
those things? That's what I think was.
So you meet your team. You meet your team. Within your team, if it's an already established team, you might not be doing those, little things like, okay, let's establish a way of working. How do we want to, you and your team, if there's like a scrum master on your team or a project manager, which most likely will be, they will take the lead in planning, okay, what's our way of working? How do we want to approach this client project? How many meetings do we need to start with? You tell them what you need. Okay, we are going to have requirement sessions. You understand? If you want to run your requirement sessions every day or alternate days or once a week, or you understand? If it's something simple they are looking for, you don't need too many meetings. If it's something a little bit complex, and let me tell you, you will not be alone. As far as you're talking about, discovery sessions, your technical counterparts they are also pitching in to say, yes, discovery. Because there's both functional and technical discovery. So you are never really alone. You understand? You guys will agree together. It's a cross-functional team. It's always a collaborative team because everybody's work has direct impact on the other people's work. So you decide your way of working, you set your meeting cadence. I'm talking from agency consulting experience now. You set your meeting cadence, you decide, then you go into your discovery, then you start documenting, then you start close to when your discovery phase is supposed to end, you're already translating things into Jira. You understand? Work just goes on and on like that. Design is already doing their designs. Now that's consulting. But I know that in a business environment that is not consulting, it will be a little different.
Yeah, it's a
In
bit
a business
different.
environment, for example, is always different. If you have to work on software A, they can first train you on that software and be like, okay, this is what you're going to be doing. This is how our app works. Now, this is what it is. Then, of course, you meet your team too. You understand how the team works too. What are our meeting cadences? How do we run this? How do we, what? Then you just get into the flow. Honestly, somebody's going to onboard you, and the person who onboards you will give you as much information as you need to get started. All you have to do is sink in everything,
Let's
ask
take two more.
questions.
Let's take two more questions. I see two more hands. Olatunde, can you unmute and ask your question, please? Olatunde.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the question I want to ask is, I know from your background, you said you have a first degree in philosophy,
Yeah,
and probably you've had some work experience before relocating to Canada.
yeah.
I just want to ask how you were able to align your previous work experience to actually make you to stand out for the role you are looking forward to as at that time. How you're able to do that. So that's what I want to ask. And probably if you can share it with us, what your role has been in Nigeria. I mean, working, what you've been doing and how you're able to align it to actually make you to get that role you are currently
Okay.
in.
Okay, so I will answer this question more broadly so that it's relatable for most people. You understand? No matter where you work, you probably work with some kind of software. You understand? And no matter what you do or in what capacity, you probably have been involved in some kind of process improvement. You've probably had to suggest to your boss, hey, why don't we do this instead of this? For example, I worked as a procurement person, you understand, before, and I've had to say, hey, our process for sending out RFQs is not good enough. You understand? Why don't we do this or do this instead? You understand? Do you know that request I made can lead to a technology improvements. If I say, let's improve this process of how we are requesting for RFQs, and maybe what we usually do is maybe put them in the system and, press enter, push this, and then it goes to the department that needs it. And then some people have to, that kind of thing can lead to, oh, this thing, it doesn't work like this in our ERP. You understand? Or it doesn't work like this in our software. We're supposed to be able to, it can lead to calling the technical team and say, oh, why don't we add this so that when this comes in, this department can see it rather than carrying file manually to their office. You understand? So you get what I'm trying to say? So those are the things that you need to look at. But essentially, I see what Michael just dropped in the chat. It's a session that you can do with the tutors on Skill Garage, where you can sit down, look at your current skill, whether you work in a bank, whether you work in a, because if I tell you exactly what I did from sales, so it might still you won't still totally understand that concept because of all our unique experiences, of all the unique things we've done in the past. It takes some introspection and it takes some planning, you understand, to be
Let
able to
me
move
just
from
come
that
in
point
there
into.
and allow me to just permit me to come in there and just let me help because of our time. Let me help him just wrap it up in 1 minute. So business analysis is a practice of enabling change in organizations. Once you understand that fundamental concept, everything changes. You will understand that change happens in all industry, all forward-thinking industry and organization. So there's no organization where you're coming from. There's no industry where you're coming from, be it health, be it sales, be it warehouse. It doesn't matter. There would have been some type of change or the other. So the question now is, how do you take that change and how do you translate it into and leverage it as a current experience as a BA? Here's the catch. To show BA experience, you need to do a couple things. You need to show that there is a problem you solved, a solution you implemented. your contribution that you made as a BA, and the eventual output or the outcome, which is the value you capture on your resume. These are things like, oh, it led to 15% increase in sales, or it led to 30% decrease in churn rate, things like that. So those four things are essential: problem, solution, contributions, and output. Once you're able to now begin to see the things you do from that perspective, you are able to leverage your past or your current experience from the perspective of a BA experience. Now, that may seem a whole lot, and that's why I've dropped that in the chat for you. Please look for a time that works. Typically, we are doing a group session, and we are able to take most times we're able to look at each individual unique experiences and try to give you a quick overview. We may not go in depth. We do a quick overview on how that is really very possible for you to take what you have and transition it into a business analysis experience. I hope that helps. All right, let's move on to Angie. That may probably be our last question for today. And then I'll take a couple questions and then we'll call it a day. All right, Angie, your question.
Okay. Hi. So I was going to ask during the time when you were searching for a job, how, like your resume structure, how did you structure your resume? Because what I hear these days is your resume has to conform to ATS standard and all that. So what specific tool did you use to work on your resume? Because I hear people say if you use ChatGPT and it goes through scanning, you might be disqualified and, things like that. So I just wanted to be sure the tool you used for your resume.
Okay. So when I was building my resume, I didn't use any tool for my resume, honestly, if you ask. If I'm building it now, I will use AI. If I'm applying to a job now, I would use AI. But when I was doing it then, there weren't a lot. I'm talking 3 years ago. Think about it. 3 years ago, there weren't a lot of AI tools available for resume building as we have today. But today, I will not do the same. Now, here is it. When using AI, you can't use AI. You have to give AI the right prompts. You have to be smart about using AI. That's just the truth. If you, for example, okay, so here's some lazy thing that somebody can do. I can just copy the job description, give AI and say, give me a resume. That's not okay. You understand? That's not okay. So that's when your resume will be flagged for, oh, this is plagiarism, because who says somebody else applying to the same job has not done that exact same lazy thing? You understand? And then you have the same exact resume because they just copied the job description and said, oh, ChatGPT, give me a resume. You understand? No, it doesn't work that way. Rather, what I did when I was job hunting was, like I said, I look at the job. Is this job emphasizing data? Are they emphasizing CMS? Are they emphasizing collaboration? What are the keywords? What are the keywords in this job description that is missing in my resume? Is this job emphasizing e-commerce? Is this job emphasizing retail? Are they emphasizing travel? Are they emphasizing what? Or do they want Salesforce experience? What do they want that I have? You understand? If they want something, it's in the job description. If I have it and it's missing in my resume, I put it in my resume. What I would do smartly now, even if I'm using just ChatGPT, what I would do smartly now is that I can ask ChatGPT, what are the key keywords in this job description that are missing in my resume? So I'll give ChatGPT the job description, I'll give ChatGPT my resume. Point out the keywords that are missing, you understand, in my resume. If ChatGPT gives me 30 keywords, I don't have to use all of the 30 keywords. And I have to use those, even where I will use those keywords, I'll use them in a way that totally makes sense. ChatGPT has just helped me to be able to quickly scan through, identify these keywords. Now I have to think through them. Which one makes sense for me? For my current experience, which of these keywords really makes sense for me for my current experience? How can then I would think, I'm going to use my brain and think, okay, now they want data. How have I used data on my current project? Did I really? Then I can think back and remember, oh, how I use sales data to say, oh, this feature is not necessary. Your salespeople don't need this information. Why are we giving them this data? They don't need it for anything. And I can say that I saved development efforts by deprioritizing it based on data, because we can waste time building something that is not needed. But based on this data, I saved 40 hours of development efforts by, you understand, using this data to make an insightful decision.
Yeah,
You understand?
that
So
makes
those are the things that we should do with AI, and not just,
not just
copy and paste things from
AI
AI without
blindly.
thinking through it and doing our own edit step by step, rereading your resume, make sure it makes sense. Make sure you are the one in that resume. Your heart and your mind has to be in your resume, but the resume needs to represent you. So AI cannot do it 100%. You work hand in hand with AI, but AI can make it faster and easier for you, or give you prompts in the right direction that you can now retweak to your own circumstance and make it work for you.
I think what I'm going to do is, you guys just look out for that. I'm going to, maybe in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to do a session on how to leverage AI for job search, for, experience, for resume and all of that stuff. But I'm not going to do it for free. So, but watch out, I'm going to put something more very comprehensive that can help you. And for those of you who need to know, we are working. We've had a couple of discussions with some AI resume people, and would likely be getting a discount for you very soon. So just be on the lookout. We are working on that, and once we are able to seal that conversation, we will let you know. All right. Okay. Would this be the last question? There's one other question here. Did you at any point find that you needed more support to carry out your duties? Not sure what that is, but yeah. Did you at any point find that you needed more support to carry out your duties?
So, if you can explain what you mean by support, and from who do I need support? I think you will always need support because you will not work alone. I'm thinking about it in terms of collaboration this time around, not somebody teaching you what to do, but collaboration in terms of you asking questions, you getting answers to your questions within your team. You understand? You're not understanding a concept and reaching out to the right people and saying, can you explain this thing to me? You
Hi,
understand?
hi, Olamide. Okay, so
Yeah,
I was the one that asked that question.
yeah.
I I think I'm just thinking of it in a way that did you find that the cohort, I mean, the training you had, the business analysis training you got, and did you find that it was sufficient when it comes to acquiring the required skill set needed? Did you find that it was sufficient for you to carry out your duty successfully as a business analyst, or did you get to a point on your job where you felt, okay, I think I need to go and learn more about this so that I can effectively deliver, or I need to know more about this, or I need to call Michael. Do I don't know what they are talking about on this project? The people then think that you are a business analyst, but you only just transitioned into becoming one few months ago. So, and when we go and take up these jobs, we tell them that we have experience and all of that. That's what
Mhm.
I'm just wondering. Were you going back to your notes to say, okay, I think all the trainings I took at Skill Garage it helped me sufficiently to do this job, or did you find? I know that you said you took some trainings down the line, but that wouldn't be immediately when you started the job. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes. So I would say that the training I got was sufficient for me to know what am I supposed to do? What's my expectation? You understand? What's the expectation from me as a business analyst? How do I prioritize? Then very important concepts like user story writing, JIRA, prioritization, nothing new. You understand, to me? Because I remember that even on my first call with the client, on my first week, the client was not, they didn't work in an agile fashion. You understand? So everything we were saying was kind of like they weren't getting it. They wanted the whole project plan from the beginning. They were kind of like very waterfallish in their approach. So I was able to speak up in the meeting and explain, the agile process to them. Like even during the meeting, I just pulled up like a diagram that I had, and I'm like, so this is how things are going to work. We're going to break things down into epics. We're not going to go into everything all at once. You understand? So this is going to be iterative. We are going to prioritize. You understand? We are going to, and then just show them that software development life cycle kind of diagram. And like, this is just generally how things work. They kind of got it. The conversation continued from there. Of course, there was more explaining to do to them to get them to try to kind of work in our way. But yeah, that was a contribution I made, at least immediately on that call, which is something I got from my training, right? But I remember when I wanted to start the discovery session or the requirement gathering sessions, I remember reaching out to Michael. Yes, I did reach out. I needed support at some point, if that's what I said. Do you have any business requirement documentation that I've written in the past? Can I just see it? You understand? I just want to get a framework for how I should, write my own. Can I see it? Do you have it? Yes. And he shared something with me, which is totally unrelated to what I'm doing. But all I needed was to see how they structured it. You understand? Okay, I'm like, okay, this makes sense. How they structured it into, requirements, current states, future states, those kind of things. Some people even track up until who made these requirements. You understand? Requirement traceability. Some people do that. You understand? I've seen people do that on other projects at my workplace. I was not tracing requirements to who made it or who is the stakeholder that needs. You understand? Not to say that anything got broken in the process, nothing got broken. So yes, I did reach out for support. I remember then at that point I asked for it, but I used that as a benchmark, like to just as a framework to just guide my own documentation too. You understand?
Let me
So
also chip in there that it's expected that, I mean, some may find that what they're doing, they can completely navigate, they can completely navigate the scenarios that they have at the workplace all by themselves. I've seen situations like that. And I've seen situations where you just need a little help. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with needing a little help, a little push. I remember when Olamide reached out and said, oh, I needed to put this together. Do you have something like this? And I gave it to her. But you would find out that at the end of the day, she added some more things to her BRD. She added some more things to the BRD. I even remember when she reached out to say, oh, these people are disturbing me about technical stuff, technical requirement. How do I handle this and what? And I said, listen, this is what you should do. This is how you should do it. This is how you should relate with them. And this is what you should do. And then she took that. And that is the role of mentorship, right? You won't always, and that's why we always provide that on-the-job support when you come through the training, because we know we don't want you to get hired and get fired. We want you to be able to, I believe personally that what we give you is sufficient to help you, get going on the job. For example, all the things that Olamide said about headless CMS, you heard that, right? Headless CMS and all those technical APIs, we do it on the call. We do it in the training in module 5. Is it module 4 or module 5? The tech and design for BA. We teach you that already. So you're already going with that mentality and you understand the conversations, right? That happens. Now, are you going to know it like somebody who has done this for 5 years? Not exactly so. But you have what you need to be able to start and move. And as you keep going, you learn more. You begin to say, you have those aha moments where you be like, oh, so this was what was mentioned at that time. Oh, so this was what we did in that project that time. Oh, so it's exactly the same thing. And before you know it, I think it was just that first month that you reached out to me. Since then till now, you've self-navigated just that first month. And it's the same with most students. In fact, there are some students that never reach out to me. And when you call them and ask them, how are you doing on the job? Excellent. I have a couple students that are now in director levels. Yes, they've reached out to me asking for people. And how did they get there? Some of these students, you discover they didn't even reach out. They were able to self-navigate. There are some that says, Michael, I keep going back to the recordings, just to get one or two things. So yes, there will also always be times when you need one or two things. And of course, like we say, we don't let you walk alone. We will be there for you all the way. All right. Let's begin to wrap this up. Olamide, thank you for coming on the call. You represent all the women for International Women's Day. And would you say that women are well represented when it comes to tech? And if they are not, what can we do to help women to be well represented in tech? And as the Skill Garage, what can we do? What can you do to help women get into tech?
So I would say that ordinarily looking at in all my work experiences, and I worked on various teams because the way I work on a new project, I'm on a team and I'm on another team, like that's why I worked with several teams. I would say that women are not well represented. There's been teams where the ratio of men to women on the team is like 90-10, like 90% men, 10%. Maybe we have like 30 people on the team and there's just 2 or 3, women on the team. So I would say that women are not as represented as we should be. But the only thing I find though is that I found that women are in whatever we do, because that I think we have that spirit of excellence. We want to put our best foot forward. We want to make sure that our voices are heard. We are assertive. I find that women are mostly the ones who are like even easier to work with, you understand, willing to collaborate, you understand, and just willing to go the extra mile, you understand, but we're still not as represented as we should be. I remember reading something somewhere that a man will apply for a job that they feel 60% qualified for. A woman will only apply to a job that they feel 99% qualified for. I read that somewhere before, and maybe you can even Google it. It's something that might be online. If it's such a popular opinion, it might even be on the internet. And I'm like, because I think that happens to women are we are very analytic, and we like to play safe. So maybe it helps us not to try to stretch ourselves, put ourselves out there, while we have less risk appetite than men. I think that's maybe one of the reasons why a lot of women are scared to maybe transition but I would just say, the more risk we can take up, the better we can grow. And, so I would encourage you as a woman, to take that bold leap of faith, put in the work, you understand. And yeah, the sky will just be your starting point. That's the way I can put it. And I know that this is a great place to transition. You get the support that you need. There's various platforms available. There's projects that you can get your hands on, be actively involved, get your hands dirty. That would definitely help. Yeah. And I just read what Michael put in the chat. There's a scholarship. Okay, yeah, you were going to talk about that. I just read what you put in the chat.
Yeah, so if you're a woman looking to transition, please take advantage. It's ending tomorrow. The application is ending tomorrow. Take advantage of you may not get the fully funded. You may get 75% funded. You may get 50% funded, but it's something you should take advantage of. I would really, say to go for it, because we did it last year. And one of the ladies who actually was a beneficiary of the IWF scholarship, the IWD scholarship last year, actually works in one of the agencies that I worked in. When she was shocked when she got to the company and she saw all of my documentations. She was like, Michael worked here. They were like, yes, he worked here. So, she's working there as a project manager / scrum master, huge 6 figures. just from that, singular act. So we're doing it again this year. If you're a new student, it is open to new students. If you're a new student looking to transition, please jump on this and we would look at your and see how we can help. Right? Okay. Any before I let you go, and probably before I let you go, let me just quickly let people know what we have. Our next boot camp for those of you in Canada, will be 28. We are canceling the one for the 21st. So don't worry about the 21st. That will be canceled. We're no longer doing the 21st. It's going to be the 28th of March 2025 if you are in US, Canada. Okay. And if you're in Europe, we are canceling the 20th. It's now going to be the 27th of March 2025. So that's the next boot camp that we are having. If you're looking to join, please reach out to us. Join our community, go all the way down here and you can join our community. You want to reach out to us directly on WhatsApp, please, this number 437-345-0501. I'm going to put that in the chat and you can reach out to us directly on WhatsApp. All right. Okay. Olamide, last question. And I'm going to let you go. Last question, and then I will let you go and probably will be with these guys and answer all their questions. I know you have to. I've seen your child walking around. I say, "Mommy, please now come now." And thank you. You've been so patient. So let me ask you these final thoughts. What's one thing you want every aspiring career changer to remember as they're leaving this call? What's that one thing you want them, final word you want to give to them? If they're sitting on the fence trying to transition, you want to leave them with last words, what would that be?
So my final word is that we are as good as the decisions that we make. And nothing will change unless you change. The decisions that we take every day, the combination of those small decisions is what makes, what takes us further to our dream. Takes us closer to our dream or farther away from our dream. So just take the decision, you understand. Do what you need to do, you understand, to take you from point A to point B. Don't allow fear to stop you in the track. Don't allow detractors, because somebody will come and tell you, oh, this thing does not work. I've done it before. You understand? Don't allow naysayers to stop you in your tracks from doing what you need to do. You understand? Will it be easy? Maybe not. Will it be worth it? Yes. 100% yes. Because I don't want to talk too much. Like I said, final words. So
definitely, please, definitely, you just heard that nothing changes until you change. Okay, so until you decide to take that step and make that change happen, nothing is going to change. It's just like the first law. Is it the first law, the second law now of Newton's law of motion? That everything is going to stay in a state of
rest.
a state of rest or in a straight line motion until it is impacted upon by force, until there is a force, external force acting on it. So if you think things are going to move in a particular direction, for that thing to move in that particular direction, you need to exert force in that direction. So thank you so much, Olamide. Thank you. We're going to let you go. I'm going to stay on the call for a few more minutes just to answer some, maybe bootcamp related questions for those who want to ask those questions. And again, thank you so much. Yes, Olamide is on the alumni group. For those of you who are not on the alumni group, please join our alumni group. For those of you who have gone through the bootcamp, and of course, you can always reach out to these alumni when they have the time. They can always help you in one or two ways. But of course, things still have to go through us in a more organized way, so you don't bombard them. These people are people with busy lives also. All right. So thank you so much, Olamide. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice
Right.
meeting all of you guys. Nice chatting with you. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Yeah, so
Everyone.
thank you so much. So Ahano, thank you. Ahano said 1,000 good intentions is not as powerful as one action. Act today and your tomorrow will be forever. You'll be forever grateful for taking that one action. Thank you. That is huge. Now I'm going to stay back for 5-10 minutes and I'm going to answer whatever questions you've got for me, whether regarding the bootcamp or regarding any other thing. Since Olamide has to go, in fact, she overstayed. We told her but I know how this thing goes. Sometimes we just want to talk and ask questions. Some of you just want to know what she's doing at the workplace, if she was able to survive the heat and stuff like that. There's a lot of questions to ask, right? Well, we can't ask all of those questions today. We'll bring another guest next month, hopefully, and probably keep those questions. The next guest will probably do some justice. I think what I'll do is after 30 minutes or 40 minutes, I'll just open the floor for you guys to ask the questions for the next guest. So again, the next bootcamp is starting on the 28th for those of you in North America, and for those of you in Europe, it is starting on the 27th. Okay, you will get the details on the website. And please feel free to join our community. Reach out to us if there is anything that you need, particularly any information that you need, particularly. Sign up for the skill mapping session, which I sent, for those of you, for the women that are looking to join the bootcamp, these are new entrants. Please also take advantage of the scholarship. I'm just going to be throwing all the links in there. And also, there's the skill mapping session. I'm going to throw that in there also. Take advantage of that also. And I'm happy to help you make that move. I'm happy to help you make that move. I'm happy to help you, transition into tech. Thank you for those of you who joined. And I do appreciate, I don't take it for granted that you had to join. I mean, we will not have this if you are not here, right? So thank you for joining, and I'll see you some other time. For those of you who are already in the community, I'll see you on Tuesday when we have our project session. So please do not miss it. You've heard from Olamide. These sessions are really very important. Take them seriously. Okay. So I'll see you on Tuesday during our project session, and we can take it off from there. Bye for now, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye, guys.